bringing a digital immigrant or possibly a digital ignorant into the format of all this. We're looking at frameworks. Now, I don't believe there's one single framework. I believe there are several different types of framework, and I tend to think that the Unitec framework being one type of framework, and the framework for working with students pedagogically, I believe to be a scaffold. Our general framework is going to be Moodle. And in Moodle, it's my intention that there be 3 simple buttons in Moodle. The first button, clicking to a linked list for course information. The second button, and each of these buttons has a symbol of its own. The second button also going to a link table with student resources. The third button, however, goes to a page in Moodle again, which will have 3 linking buttons. And the buttons in this case will be 3 identities, in this case 3 tutors, and it'll be their photographs. On clicking on the button, for instance, if we take our senior lecturer, he will take the students into his environment to work with them that year. In this case, our senior lecturer is Chris, and he will take those students out into his area of the cloud that he wishes for them to work in, and they'll progress from there. My photo button will take my students also out into a cloud, and perhaps mine might be a little more restrictive until I'm more comfortable with it. We have another tutor, Matthew, and Matt may not be comfortable going to that extreme yet. However, we're looking at encouraging Matthew to look at working with blogs and having his students build blogs. So there's room in this model where pedagogies can still be maintained and where development of staff can be encouraged as well. Speaking for myself, if I extend our page here a little bit now, take you into the next part of my framework. This is where I come from the point where I have my students here, and I take them out and we develop different skills. My intention is to build a lot of my constructivist mentality, because I am absolutely convinced that construction and constructivism is a method that will work for me personally as a teaching style, and I believe and know that it's the right path to go down for students. Inside that, I wish to build it up around a concept of trade terms. And the trade terms can be a forwards and backwards method whereby in a collaborative document we can have students build their own Wikipedia around our topic matters. That leads on to the ability for us to have discussions around terms, and the content starts to drop out of the terms. Rather than me trying to drive content, the content will start to develop, and then the conversations develop. So how do we monitor those conversations and record those conversations? This is where the advent of Web 2 tools becomes more exciting for us, really, because the conversations can be recorded not only in the collaborative document we have back here, but they can also be recorded in student blogs. Both the collaborative Google document, the Wikipedia, and the blogs, of course, are accessible by tutor. So we have a student-tutor relationship. It is two-way. Tutors can leave comments for their students. It is still asynchronous in the sense that you need to read their blogs and you won't read them every single day, but the concept is for students to use the blogs, the blog posts regularly, so they end up building themselves a blog book of learning. So the safety involved in these is that they may be on their own initially for some of these initiatives, in that I may ask students to come up with 2 or 3 trade terms over the next week, and they need to try and build their own description for those trade terms. And then also they might talk in their blogs about some of the experiences, not only in the practical workshop, which is where most of them are comfortable writing about, but they hopefully will start to build knowledge around their own learning styles with support from me. The safety comes in that everybody's going to be in that same boat. So when challenged perhaps on their description, rather than saying this is a poor description, we say, okay, that's not a bad description. How can we as a group expand on that description and clean it up and make it more appropriate for our trade? Along with the students carrying a blog and doing a blog each during the year, the tutor also will do a blog. And that blog will be summarising the attitudes and the processes that we are all going through. So it may refer to conversations with students, it may refer to both good practice and perhaps some practice that needs to be moderated somewhat in the group mentality. So coming back to the theme here of the safety, why am I saying it's safe? Well, we're building our own group and we're building our own community, and it's through this community and the societal context in our community, which can be well outside any of the Web 2 tools that I am asking students to use. They can use their own, and they will have their own communities and discussion boards. However, so that we can bring things back to a accessible stage, the blogs are not going to be assessed. They are not part of an assessment event, so that's a safe place for students to put their reflections and to edit their thinking in that environment. Later down the track, it's quite likely that the safety will come back into the fold, as it were, and come back inside the more structured, formal relationships that we have inside Unitec and the Unitec framework. So we're coming back from being exploratory, we're coming back from being in a more open environment where, as I say, I don't like the term framework, I prefer to think of a scaffold. And as they've built new knowledge and we start pulling that scaffold down because that knowledge has become their own, we can come back in, and in Moodle we have the facility to do grading and assessments and that type of thing. So I think in Moodle, the one other thing we may use in Moodle could be the forum post. And I think the forum post is probably a fairly reasonable way to have students keep looking into Moodle. Otherwise, they simply won't use that area at all. And the forum can be more along the lines of somewhere where I can post information, they can ask questions, that are the types of questions and the types of postings that are relevant to all of their class group rather than individuals. Closer understanding of my scratchy looking sketched up model here may be taken from this last blog post, in that it has a couple of links to Gray and Bartlett that show more clearly what activities we've been doing with the students and how it's giving me a starting point to develop further and correct any little glitches along the way. So I'm looking for next year being driven from the start, the trade term concept, and my hope is that that should develop quite nicely. I think the trade terms has always been a difficulty for us, and because it is our language, I strongly believe that's a great place to start constructivism from. Thank you.